Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Shamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dasatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, we have a question we're going to answer in today's class. And this was a question that Krishna Karshani asked. In a lecture, I had quoted Prabhupada in a Bhagavatam lecture in which Prabhupada said that we should see how our good qualities are developing. He was talking about qualities of a Vaishnava, and he said, we should look at ourselves and see, am I developing these qualities? Because that would be a way of calculating my advancement. And then Krishna Karshani said, but it seems also that awareness of our bad qualities is also symptomatic of our advancement. So it seems to be a contradiction. And is that awareness of my bad qualities a sign of my advancement? Or is it a sign that I'm actually not advancing? They're genuinely bad qualities. And there's something wrong. So how do we deal? And so with both apparent contradictions, I don't really believe it's a contradiction, because both concepts are there. But I think the real point is when you become aware of your bad qualities, is it a good sign that you've become aware? Or is it a sign that you're actually digressing? So that would be the question. Because becoming aware of your faults or your anarthas could be a sign of your advancement. Or it could be a sign that you're digressing and that you're not actually developing good qualities, but you're regressing. And sometimes devotees feel they were more Krishna conscious when they were younger devotees. And they became perhaps slack or less strict as they went on in their years of Krishna consciousness. And maybe they feel that there's some attachments or some anarthas that they had felt that they had overcome previously, and now they feel like they're being somewhat controlled by them. So let's go back to Prabhupada's first statement, try to understand it. And Prabhupada said in a lecture, we should see how our good qualities are developing. So what does it mean that we should see how our good qualities are developing? Well, Vaishnava has 26 qualities, or he has more, but in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 26 prominent qualities of a devotee are listed. And this is how we distinguish who is a devotee, specifically who is a pure devotee. How will you know? Anybody can say, I'm spiritually advanced, so how will you know who is spiritually advanced, and how will you know if you're spiritually advancing unless there's some criteria? And of course, those 26 qualities are not the only criteria, and you have other qualities in Bhagavad Gita, Brahminical qualities, samas, dhammas, being equal towards everyone, being dhammas, sense-controlled, samatapa, being austere, socham, clean, being religious, being honest, astikam, samadhammas tapo socham, shantir, are tolerant, arjavam, evacha, being peaceful, and so forth. So there's so many qualities, and obviously, if you are wanting to be Krishna conscious, certainly you should know the landmarks. Okay, you go down this street, then you'll see a supermarket. Then you turn right, you go up a half a mile. On the left, you'll see a big cell tower, and then you turn left there, and so forth. So there's landmarks which allow you to know that you've gone the right way. So if I say after you turn here, there'll be a big cell tower, a green one, and then you pass that, and then on your right you'll see a lake and so forth. And if you're not seeing those things, that means you're off. You're not taking the road, you're off. So, but if you're seeing those things, then you know that you're there. So what are you supposed to see in your advancement? You're supposed to see that you're becoming more regulated, more controlled. more detached, more interested in service, less interested in yourself. I remember, maybe like 3 years ago, I was contemplating, and I was also speaking about on the topic of happiness. And happiness is an interesting topic because the more you try for it, the less you get. And so I was asking myself, are you happy? And then it dawned on me that I never ask myself that question. I never think like that. And I never think, oh, what can I do to make myself happy? At least that's how most people think, at least non-devotees. So what can we do today to make ourselves happy? We could go to the beach, we could go to the mountains, we could play some sport, we could watch some movies. We're always thinking like that. And then I realized that I was so busy in my service, and there were so many people to help, that I didn't really have time to even think about making myself happy. And then I realized it's not even a question of happiness, that I was like beyond that. It was not something that I think about. So that would be a symptom that you're advancing, that you stop thinking about your own happiness. You're so engaged in service. You're so engaged in helping others. So, you know these symptoms. Some detachment, some ability to control your senses, ability to tolerate your own mind and the minds of other people, not hating anybody, being humble, being respectful, kind, humble, and meek, a well-wisher to everyone. Doesn't need more than required. Like that, various qualities. So Prabhupada is saying, if you're advancing, then you should see the manifestation of those qualities. He didn't say to what degree, but the point was to a greater degree than you had last year or the year before. So I think that in and of itself is clear, that if I'm advancing in Krishna consciousness, I will become more selfish. I will become more detached. I'll be more attracted to serving Krishna. I'll be more sense-controlled. I'll be happier. I'll be more satisfied, like that. Happiness is also a big one. Because Ananda is a symptom of spiritual advancement, and Ananda is a symptom of who we are as spiritual beings. So definitely feeling happy, feeling satisfied with my service, overcoming envious tendencies, overcoming jealousy. These are all symptoms that naturally develop as one advances spiritually. So that was Prabhupada's point, that you can't just look at your service and ignore these other things. Oh, I'm doing a lot of service. Well, what about your sadhana? Well, it's not so good, but I'm doing service. And are you controlling your anger? No, but I'm doing service. And what about your eating? Are you eating more than you need? Yes, much more than I need, but I'm doing service. And what about how the humility department? No, I don't really think I can do that, but I'm doing a lot of service. So that was a context in which Prabhupada was presenting that, the concept that one may wrongly think that if I'm doing a lot of service, these other things, they're not really important. I mean, they're somewhat important, but not that important, and I don't really have to worry about it, because what I really need to worry about is my service. So you can extend that to my sadhana, that I get up early, I chant my rounds, and so I'm doing service, I get up early, I chant my rounds, so I'm good. I don't have to worry about anything else. And Prabhupada's saying, no, that those aren't the only criteria with which you evaluate your spiritual advancement. You evaluate it according to the qualities of a devotee you're developing, and your level of detachment, and your level of happiness and satisfaction, and your attraction to serving Krishna. So that's something we should notice. And if we notice that we're not developing these things, or if we think we're developing them, but we're in situations which reveal to us that we're not, some situation triggers a desire, triggers you're with this devotee, and the devotee disturbs you, and you thought you were very peaceful and equipoised and so on, and this devotee disturbs you, and you get very upset. So then it's a reminder. You say, oh, when there's a trigger there, then This is what happens, so I'm not free from it. So you notice it. How am I developed? Oh, I need to work on this. So that was Prabhupada's idea. Notice it. So you notice what you need to work on, and also notice it, because if you're not developing these qualities, then it means you have to go back. Something is missing. You're not doing something. You're not doing something, or you're not doing enough of something, or you're doing something wrong. That's the idea. Krishna says, if we're not focused on the happiness of our family members, what if we are too focused on the happiness of our family members? Yeah, that's definition for mother. Hare Krishna. The principle is don't do anything that would be detrimental for your own spiritual life in the name of helping another person. Of course, you have duties as a mother, but if you're going over and above the call of duty, and that's compromising your own spiritual practice, that's not smart. So you have to be careful of that. I'm looking right out a window because I wanted to get enough light, but then by looking out a window, I can't see. Can't see what you're writing well. Okay, hold on. Let's try it this way. Better. You as a devotee, you may be so busy serving Prabhupada, not even thinking about happiness. But if not advanced devotee, is so much engaged in service to forget about their own needs, including happiness. It might be something detrimental. That's for you to decide. I can't say if it's detrimental or not. It might be and it may not be. And so it might be that you could transcend your needs, but you're afraid to. That you actually don't need things that you think you need. That you've evolved past it, but you don't want to admit it or you don't want to give it up. So in that sense, then what you say, it would be unhealthy not to give those things up. If that's not the level you're on, you could say, yes, you have to fulfill your needs, but when we're talking about happiness, it's a devotee, he's not trying to be happy independently. Filling your needs and trying to be happy are not always the same thing. Yeah, so I need certain things so I can be balanced and grounded. But if I'm looking for my happiness outside of connecting my life to Krishna, then that's not going to work. And that's something we should notice. If I'm making that effort, or if I still think that things of this world can bring me something that Krishna consciousness can't, at least it seems what Prabhupada's saying is that should be noted, and then we should deal with that. Because it's not symptomatic of advancement. So let's say you have needs, we all have needs, but let's say your needs haven't matured in 30 years. That would be something to consider. I still need the same thing I needed 30 years ago. Well, maybe you should have evolved into different needs or higher levels on the hierarchy of needs. They say in the hierarchy of needs that you will eventually evolve into the higher ones, contribution, and what's the other one? The two highest ones, giving back, making a contribution, and growing. So, you maybe have lower, more basic needs for security and so forth, for significance. But as you evolve, you should evolve to the higher needs. And I would say the 6 human needs, as Maslow has given it, they have transcendental components to them. Like the first human need is security. So what does that mean? It means that we need a secure place to live. We need to know that we're safe and so on. But when you're more Krishna conscious, then I need to know that I have shelter, feet of my Guru and Krishna. I need to know that I can access Krishna's shelter, or I want to have that shelter. So my security now is at Krishna's feet. I'm not looking for material security in the way I used to. So that would be a sign that you're evolving, that your needs have evolved to a more spiritual level. Significance is a human need, that I want to know that I'm pleasing to my guru, not that I want to be significant in the eyes of other people. So then my human need is being transcendentalized. Giving back means giving Krishna, like that. Variety is a human need where we want to do different things. Okay, so do kirtan, go out, preach, cook, clean, varieties of service, that's fine. And so then you see my need for variety, instead of going to Disneyland, is to go to Mayapur or go to Radhadesh for a kirtan, or go like that, go somewhere. So your variety is, the need for variety is being served within varieties of sadhana and service. So that's what I would say. Now, I think the general question that you're asking is awareness of what you can't renounce. Awareness of your ability to renounce, how much you can renounce. But in that, it's not an equation which we should just present as like artificial renunciation. Like I'm renouncing what I'm not ready to renounce, or I need things, I'm trying to renounce them, but I actually need them. But there's the opposite side of that, is that I'm not renouncing things that I could renounce. So you can err on either side. You might be more renounced than you think, so you don't renounce, or you're not as detached, or you're not doing as much as you could. Just as you may think you're more renounced than you are, you may be more renounced than you think you are. So then you're erring, you can err on either side. So I think, therefore, the answer we want to give to your specific question about understanding our needs is that we should be realistic, but we should also be philosophical. So sometimes being realistic could also mean we're illusioned. We're not seeing things shastrically. So for one reason or another, we may think we need something that we don't. And so that would be a mistake. And it would be a mistake if we do need something to stabilize us in Krishna consciousness, and we avoid it. So I always like to think from both sides, because I'm very aware of both sides. And if, for example, if Krishna Karshani, if you could go further and I don't push you because you're telling me it's artificial, but I know you could go further, then it would be a mistake on my part to agree with you. But if it's true, it would be a mistake on my part to push you. In other words, if I didn't agree with you and you were right, and I pushed you, that would be a mistake. And if I didn't agree with you and you were wrong and I didn't push you, that would be a mistake. So you see there's a balance there. Like we don't want to use the excuse or the reasoning, maybe not excuse, but the reasoning that this is artificial, where it kind of becomes like a mantra that we're using everywhere. Can you do this? No, it's artificial. Can you do that? No, it's artificial. It won't fulfill my needs, and so on. So it can't become a mantra which we rely on. That would be a huge mistake. Right? Where becomes a mantra where we just always fall back on it, but at the same time, it's not that we can deny those needs when they're real. So we have to be balanced enough and smart enough and philosophical enough to know when to push ourselves and to know when pushing is going to be detrimental. So sometimes it's detrimental, and sometimes it's detrimental not to push. Right? So I've seen both situations with other devotees, and I've seen both situations in myself, and I'm very cautious on both sides, because if I push you too hard and you're not able to do it, you'll crack. But if you're able to do it and I don't push you, then you may not crack, but you may not go anywhere, or not go as far as you could. That's the problem there. You said something, I'm advanced devotee, you can neglect your need of happiness. It's not, I don't see it that way. Because what would be the reason that we would be looking for happiness outside of Krishna consciousness? Obviously, because we're not finding it in Krishna consciousness. Now you could say, well, because I'm not advanced, I'm not finding it, but new bhaktas are finding it. So therefore, that argument doesn't hold. And I would say that we may not be cultivating it sufficiently, or regularly enough, or deeply enough, or that we may be doing something that is blocking the growth of our creeper, and therefore we're not experiencing the happiness of Krishna consciousness. But to say that happiness doesn't exist in Krishna consciousness, that's not true. Happiness does not exist outside Krishna consciousness. But I think the point that you're making, without stating it directly, is that people who appear to be in Krishna consciousness aren't actually in Krishna consciousness. And that's why they're happy. Because you can never make the statement that someone who's in Krishna consciousness wouldn't be happy. You could only make the statement that someone who is not in Krishna consciousness wouldn't be happy. And therefore, if you make the statement, but I've seen so many devotees who are not happy, that means they're not properly executing Krishna consciousness. Yeah, so you say, but I'm talking about, I think we're talking about two different things. I'm talking about needs and desires being satisfied as a means to satisfy the material side. But I'm defining happiness as something which is not material. Because even if you study books on happiness, all the books will say no one in this world finds happiness by having things. So if you're talking about fulfilling the need to have a husband, a home, secure income, I wouldn't say those are sources of happiness. I would say those are sources of needs that need to be satisfied so that I can be peaceful enough to focus on my Krishna consciousness, and that will really give me happiness. Because also, if those things are giving you more happiness than Krishna consciousness, that would be a danger sign. Right? So it's just like, I'm in Hawaii, right? So if you want to be happy, come to Hawaii. All you miserable devotees, you need to come to Hawaii. Because if you come to Hawaii, just look how nice it is. We're right across the street from the beach. You see that fence there, and those palm trees, and this house? Well, that house is right on the beach. So come here, it's nice weather. There's frangipani trees everywhere, mango trees everywhere. And yeah, you'll be so happy you'll forget Krishna. So I would like to define happiness as something not material. Because even the non-devotees say, well, you won't be happy unless you're serving. So they're not looking at happiness in terms of sense gratification. Every psychologist and everyone who has done any research on this subject, they understand that. So, yes, if all your needs are met, then you're in a platform where you can experience enough material satisfaction that you can now focus on your spiritual life. And that's where you'll find your real happiness. Just like one of my god sisters is a counselor, and so she says, you're not going to find happiness in marriage. You're going to find a relationship which allows you to discover, allows you to be a person who can discover happiness and joy in your life. So you have this relationship with your husband, and it satisfies so many needs so that you can then work on yourself and really experience happiness. Because ultimately another person can't make you happy, right? It seems like they can make us miserable. But you know what I'm saying. So if we define happiness in terms of as that which comes from within us, that can't be bought or purchased externally. That comes through service, or that comes through sattvic activity, then the way I look at it is fulfilling our needs, then puts us in a condition where it's like when you're hungry and you eat, you feel happy. It's not like you're really happy. I mean, you are after you eat for a while, but that's not really what we call happiness. So needs are like hunger, and when those are filled, you feel satisfied and you feel a sense of happiness. But those needs are just like steps into the doorway of bhakti. So you fulfill as many needs, so you take as many steps as you have to get into the entrance of bhakti. But and then once those needs are fulfilled, you don't have to think about them. So now you can think about service. Now you can think about giving to others. And when you do that, then you experience happiness in Krishna consciousness. Then Prabhupada said, on different occasions, happiness is a symptom of Krishna consciousness. And when he's talking about happiness, he's talking about ananda. So maybe what you're talking about is more of a material level of happiness that comes through having certain things. So yeah, that's fine. We need that, but it won't compare to the happiness that you'll get in Krishna consciousness. So I don't generally refer to that as happiness. I just refer to that as fulfilling material needs. So like here in Hawaii, people are very happy because the weather's always nice and it's not crowded and there's oceans everywhere. And so, in that environment, you're in touch with nature, and so you feel a certain kind of happiness. But what you get in Krishna consciousness it's amazing. So yes, if your material needs are fulfilled, then you won't think so much about your happiness, and you can think about other people's happiness. You can focus on what they need. So that's good. That's good. Now, I wanted to address the other side of the question. So we began by saying we should see how our good qualities are developing. And that includes seeing how happy and satisfied we are in Krishna consciousness. If I'm not happy and satisfied, all right, maybe it's the wrong ashram, maybe it's the wrong varna, maybe I'm denying some of my needs or suppressing them, whatever it is. We want to be in a situation where we can fully engage peacefully and happily in Krishna consciousness and be happy. So that's a symptom. So now, the other side of the question was, can we say material happiness is sense gratification, comes from, that's one aspect of material happiness, but there's other ways you can get it, like everything in Sattva Gun that Krishna describes as happiness is also material happiness. It's just a better, like being vegetarian, you'll feel happy. If you're healthy, you'll feel happy. If you live in the forest, country by the ocean, you'll feel happy. So what you're describing, sense gratification, that's more in the mode of passion, mode of ignorance. So there's not one description of happiness materially, because it comes from different things. The mode of ignorance, it will come from doing nothing, basically. Mode of passion, it will come from a lot of gratification and doing a lot of things. And mode of goodness will come from being more simple, more clean, and so forth, being kinder, appreciating people. So, if you appreciate people, you'll feel good. You serve people, you'll feel good. If you let go of attachments, let go of ill feelings towards others, you'll feel good. So those are all ways you can experience happiness that are not transcendental. It's just the sattvic happiness is a little better. And it's very similar to how you get spiritual happiness, or it may be exactly stepping stones or foundations, good foundations for your Krishna consciousness. So the sattvic happiness is a little more confusing, because and oftentimes it just seems that it's straight spiritual happiness. But, when we talk about ananda, then we're talking about what we're experiencing when we're in Vrindavan hearing Katha, when we're in an ecstatic kirtan, when we're in ecstatic association at a Rath Yatra and like that. What we're experiencing is, that's different. So, of course, Krishna describes in the Gita, antavanta, tukontiya. Happiness has a beginning and an end. That's rajasic happiness, sensual pleasure. So of course, in our society today, that's when we say material happiness, that's usually what we're talking about. So, obviously, you've got a lot of money, you're retired, you live in a beautiful place, you live in a beautiful home. You'll feel a deeper sense of comfort and generally, satisfaction than a person who's just struggling hard, working a job he hates and living in a small place in a crowded neighborhood. But ultimately, someone who's Krishna conscious is going to experience much more, no matter where he lives. So now we're going to go to the other side of the equation in which we're becoming aware of our bad qualities. So, is becoming aware of our bad qualities a sign that we're advancing, or is it a sign that we're digressing in our spiritual life? And the answer is yes and yes. It could be either one. Yeah. It could be either one. So now it will depend on your analysis of your own self, your own situation. I've said before that if you become aware of an anartha, it usually means that's a good sign, because the anartha was there, previously you weren't aware of it, now you're aware of it, so that means you're progressing. Okay, so that sense is good. And if you become aware of it and you do something to improve yourself, then it's good. But then the other side of the equation is, well, doesn't it just mean I'm not making advancement? Now then you would have to ask yourself, okay, let's look at this problem that I have. Let's say I finally admit that I'm proud. After so many years being a devotee, I'm ready to admit that I'm proud. So that seems to me like you're making advancement, right? But then we would have to ask, okay, well, how are you doing in the pride department? And how were you doing in the pride department 20 years ago when you first became a devotee? So if you say, well, it seems like I'm advancing because I don't feel I'm as proud as I was 20 years ago, and 20 years ago I would never admit that I was proud. Oh. So then your awareness of your pride is very positive, and it's a symptom that you're advancing. What if you realize your pride and you say, actually, it seems that I'm more proud now than I was 20 years ago. Okay, so now that's a problem. Now you know you're digressing. Now you've allowed that anartha to grow. We all have it, but you've somehow or other kept it alive, or watered it, fertilized it. And you need to do something that you've digressed. Now, the reality is that because we're living in an environment which is not 100% pure, even at very advanced levels of Krishna consciousness, we can be attracted away from Krishna. So it may be, let's say now you say, well, I feel I'm more proud than I was when I was a young devotee, but it may be that it's just temporary, that you're in a particular context, and that context was aggravating that desire, and you've never been in that context before. And so now it's really triggered your realization of your pride, and so you've become clearly aware of how proud you are. Maybe you weren't clearly aware as a young devotee, and so now you think I'm more proud than I was when I was a younger devotee. You may not be, but you just may be in a situation which has become a trigger for your pride, and you've never been in a situation like that before. So that's something else to consider. And the last consideration is that's not the case. It's not a trigger. It's not this or that. I've allowed this anartha of pride to infest my heart, and I didn't do anything about it. So that's also common. Now, using this example, what's interesting is, let's say you say, well, 20 years ago I wasn't proud. And I would say, okay, that may be true. But 20 years ago, what did you have to be proud of? And you say, well, I was just a brahmachari or brahmacharini, and I was not a significant devotee in the temple. I wasn't number one, this or that. So actually, I didn't have anything to be proud of. And so then I might say, well, do you think that's why it seems you were humble then? And now, what do you have to be proud of? And you say, well, I have to be proud of A, B, C, D, and E. I've accomplished 5 things, amazing things. So now you have a lot to be proud of. So it may be that you're not any prouder than you were before. It's just that now you have things to be proud of. And if you would have had things to be proud of 20 years ago, you would have been proud also. And now you can look at it and say, well, if I had these accomplishments 20 years ago, would I have been more proud than I am now? And maybe the answer is yes, I would have been. So even though you seem to be more proud now, the fact is you would have been more proud then, but then there was nothing to be proud of. And so this kind of analysis is necessary, and I can't analyze it for you. But you can analyze it for yourself. And you can ask these questions of yourself. Okay, what's going on here? I feel like I'm much more proud than I used to be. What's going on here? And then you may realize I had nothing to be proud of. Or you may realize that I'm not able to handle being honored. It's like now I'm in a position where I'm being honored. I've never been in that position. And I realize I can't handle it. So if that's the case, then you will realize here's my trigger, and that I need to avoid it. Avoid those triggers. Or I thought I could handle this situation of neglecting my sadhana a little bit, or associating with these kinds of devotees and spending time doing this and that, and I realize now I can't, because I didn't realize I was very attached to these things, or I didn't realize how weak I was. So this is what we're supposed to do. Not lament that we're weak as much as realize we are. So then I would say, in answer to the question, how do we know if we're digressing, or if we're becoming more aware of our faults? Could be both at the same time. And that's a question you have to answer yourself. That I can only help you try to answer that, but that is something you're going to have to answer. One big question to ask is, am I becoming attached to Krishna? Am I becoming attached to serving? Am I attached to hearing, discussing, associating? Am I becoming attached to these things, or am I becoming detached from these things? Not that interested, or I have bad relationships with the devotees I don't want to associate. These are things you can ask. And then try to kind of backtrack and see, well, if I feel I'm not doing well now, I'm aware, then where did it start? Okay. Started with this or that, and then how can I improve that? Or how could I avoid falling into that situation again? So that's how you make advancement. Yesterday I was doing well, today I'm not. What happened in those 24 hours? What did I do? What was I thinking? What did I not do? Or why is it that I feel this year was a very bad year? What was the catalyst? What is causing this? That's what we're meant to do, that kind of introspection. So, in that sense, you could say, well, it's a good thing I realize that I'm not doing well. It's not a good thing that I'm not doing well, but however you analyze it, as either a good thing or not a good thing, or maybe a good thing and not a good thing together, solutions are always going to be the same. And then you want to be able to approach it optimistically and positively. And if you're approaching it optimistically and positively, then in one sense, the question of your digressing is not really the main issue. The main issue is, what are you going to do about it now? So maybe you digressed. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you don't know if you digressed. But what's the real issue? What are you going to do now that you realize? And I would say, whether it's a digression or not, I would say the most important thing is to be aware. I'm going to read you something by Confucius, because Confucius was one interesting and intelligent person. He said, what did he say? Uh-oh. I somehow don't have what he said. Why can't I find it? And he was saying, oh yeah, here it is, a beautiful statement. All mortals are possessed of flaws. The real flaw is to make no effort to amend them. So we're possessed of flaws, we don't see all the flaws. When we become aware of the flaws, congratulations, that's a sign of advancement. So it's kind of a paradox because, okay, I might say, well, I'm supposed to see that my good qualities are developing, and here I see a bad quality. Okay, there's a bad quality. But I've become aware of it, I've acknowledged it, I'm willing to deal with it. Clap, give yourself 5 stars, that's good. And what does he say? The real flaw is to make no effort to amend them. And now you're willing to amend them. So if you're willing to amend it, then in my mind, it's not really a flaw anymore, because the flaw, even though it is a flaw, it is an anartha, it's not doing anything to you, negative. So you're working on amending it. Okay, I have an anger issue, but I'm working on controlling it, and I'm doing my best. So now the anger is not getting a hold of me. So even though sometimes I feel impelled because become angry because I get so easily disturbed, I don't act on it, and I'm trying to change my attitude, and I am getting better. So then, if that's the case, what's the problem? Shama Mandali ki jai. So if that's the case, Shama Mandali, you want to see what it's like here? I have to show her. This is outside our window here. And I can't see what you're seeing. You can see, but the beach is right there. I would say the beach is like 70 yards from where I'm sitting. It's just, you go across the street, and you go, and then there's a house. And then the backyard of the house is the ocean. So now Shama Mandali's thinking, oh, I'm missing it all. I'm suffering at Rath Yatra in New York, and I'm missing Hawaii. Well, you're probably happier suffering in Rath Yatra than enjoying Hawaii. There's more ecstasy there. I remember that you wrote an article that after some time a devotee becomes worse than at the beginning. Well, it's possible because, I always said that, well, the longer you're a devotee, the more opportunity you have to make offenses. The more opportunity you have to make mistakes. The more opportunity you have to do the wrong thing. Obviously, you have more opportunity to do the right thing as well, and honor devotees and so on. But we also have the opportunity, maybe opportunity is not the right word, but we have the possibility of making mistakes. So, just being a devotee a long time is not a guarantee of anything, not a guarantee that things will get better. It could get worse, yeah. So, that's just a reality that everyone has to deal with. You can, like I always give the example, no matter how healthy you are, you can become sick if you're not careful, You ever eat a meal that makes you sick? Yeah, so you were fine, you were healthy and exercising and working hard, and then you eat the wrong thing and you get sick. So where's that healthy person? Well, they made a mistake. That really, really healthy person just ate the wrong thing, and now they're really, really, really sick. Right? So, can a healthy devotee become weak? Yeah. Can a weak devotee become healthy? Of course. So, that's how it works. Yes? So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's scary. I would say it's at least concerning, and it's a reality that everyone has to confront. And that, the concept that the longer you're a devotee, the more advanced you become. Not necessarily true. Some devotees who have not been devotees very long are more advanced than those who've been devotees longer time. And you could say, well, maybe it's past life. Yeah, that could be. But maybe it's this life. Maybe they're doing better and executing devotional service, or they're giving more energy, or they have a better consciousness. So, it's not like just, I become Krishna conscious just because I'm a devotee. But you have to do the right things. Yeah. So the likelihood of us digressing in some area at some point in our Krishna consciousness, it's possible. Because as I said before, you haven't experienced all varieties of situations yet in your life. So maybe you think, well, I'm doing well in Krishna consciousness. Okay, yeah, you're doing well. And now I make you GBC. And all of a sudden you think you're God's gift to the world. And you start controlling, becoming very obnoxious in your behavior with others because you think you have a right to do it, etc. And you offend devotees, and now you suffer. So you'd never been in that situation before. So you didn't realize how obnoxious you could become if you were in charge, or how offensive you could become if you were in charge. And so that situation then became the soil upon which you planted all these seeds of destruction for your bhakti. So in other words, in life, there'll be so many situations you'll encounter. And different situations can trigger different desires. And because we haven't necessarily been in all these situations, it's possible that down the road in your Krishna consciousness, you might end up in a situation that triggers some ugly desires. And then you think, how is this? It seems like I've just digressed tremendously in my spiritual life. It just means that those desires were there, but there were no triggers. There were no situations that activated, that were a catalyst for those desires. So in that sense, yes, who knows what will happen? I would just say, like Prabhupada did, every day you pray, Krishna, please help me that I don't fall down. You never know. You would think, oh, I'll never fall down. Okay, that's fine. But who knows what situation you'll be in the future. That could stimulate a desire. And Krishna may dangle that carrot in front of you just to show you, oh my God, I thought I was detached from that, but I'm not. And so if that happens, and of course if you don't give into it, but you just see that the desire is there, that's good. So you say, I need to take more precaution. I need to be a little more vigilant in my sadhana and so forth, because I could see how this desire is still deeply rooted. I didn't realize it, and now I realize it. So that's good. So it may not be that you're digressing, it just may be that you're in a new situation, and you're not any worse off than you were previously, or maybe even better off, but you weren't in the situation that was activating that desire. When you're When you're given respect that you've never had before, that can activate a desire. When you're in certain situations which are perhaps nicer than you've ever been in before, that can activate desire. When you're associating with certain devotees, maybe their association isn't good for you, or incidentally, accidentally, you've had more association, or circumstantially more association, working with the opposite sex than you normally do, and that disturbs you. And so these are all things that should make you think, oh, okay, I thought that I was above this, and Krishna is showing me that I'm not above this, and Krishna is showing me that there are certain triggers, and Krishna is showing me that I need to avoid those triggers. And he's showing me that I still have these weaknesses. Or another way of looking at that is saying that everyone in the world has these weaknesses, but the good devotees don't put themselves in a situation where these weaknesses will be agitated. Just like, you have these stories, Vishwamitra Muni, I believe it was, meditating, and then Menaka comes and he hears her ankle bells, and he opens his eyes and he sees this very beautiful woman. And then he gives in to his lust. So the connotation of the story is she is extremely beautiful, like irresistibly beautiful. Her ankle bells were irresistibly beautiful sounding, and he's all alone in the middle of the forest and nobody's around. So if he wasn't all alone, or if she weren't exquisitely beautiful, nothing would have happened. But it shows us that even he, what to speak of ourselves, is attractive. So in other words, be careful. Nobody's above the law. Don't go alone and meditate and live alone somewhere where there's apsaras walking by, because you'll be in trouble. Go live with the brahmacharis. No apsaras in the brahmachari ashram. You're good, right? So these are things we're supposed to take into consideration. That, like, how strong am I? I'm not trying to defy. I'm not trying to say, well, I have to test my Krishna consciousness, so I'm just going to put myself in a situation where I'm surrounded by illusions and allurements to test my Krishna consciousness. It's not really like that, but it's a recognition of where my weakness is, and that what situations I need to be in so that there won't be triggers for that weakness. And that's why sometimes we think we're not making advancement when we see some bad qualities in us. It's just that there were triggers there. Like triggers of envy. Like I say, I was never so envious as I was last year working with such and such a devotee. Because such and such a devotee basically has everything you want. And you became envious. And you never met a devotee like that is so similar to you, and is doing exactly what you want to do and achieving much more success at it, and it's coming much more easily to them, and they're much more talented and smarter and so forth. So you see this, like a massive amounts of envy arising in your heart, and you never realized you were that envious before. Or you think, oh, I'm digressing. I'm going down in my spiritual life. No, it may not be that you're going down. It just may be you've never been in a situation like that. You've never been in a situation where anybody was so much like that. So I think we have to see I think we have to see often when we think we're going back to a position where it was worse than when we started. It may not be true. It just may be that it's a new situation, and it's triggering desires we didn't really realize we had. And so thank you, Krishna, for making me aware that I have these desires, because I wasn't aware of it. So after being a devotee for a while, it's a bit discouraging seeing bad things still coming out. We may feel stuck. The first principle to dealing with any problem is acceptance. And I'll explain why. Because if you don't accept, it creates negativity, and you can't solve a problem from a negative mindset. So, oh, this is so bad, this is so horrible. And then what do you start thinking? There's no solution, it's never going to get better. You know, sometimes ISKCON is so bad, it's never going to get better. Yeah, it's not a solution mentality. It's not the attitude from which you approach problems. So this is something that I've discovered personally. But last night I was reading a book, and it's called, what's it called? Hold on, everyone. It's called ACT, Acceptance Something Therapy. Acceptance Commitment Therapy. So the devotee I'm staying with, Guru Mani, has studied this for her profession. And I said, you know, why do they recommend acceptance? And say, because when you accept something, you can deal with it. And it becomes neutral. It's not like, oh, I can never deal with this, I can never overcome this, this is bad, and so forth. Acceptance neutralizes that so that you can deal with it. So the answer to the question is, how do we not become discouraged? By accepting this is it's a reality. Why be discouraged by a reality? Why not just deal with the reality? That would be better, right? Isn't it? So if it's kind of a Buddhist concept, and you know, I don't want to turn you all into Buddhists, but the Buddhist concept is you look at something without judging it. So it's not good or bad, it just is. You know, so it's like, here's my computer. So good, look at it without judgment. It's just a computer. Not good, bad, it just is. You don't know if it's good or bad anyway. It could be really bad. It could be falling apart. But don't look at it. Don't judge it. It's just a computer. All right. So now look at yourself. You're just a human. Not good, not bad. You just are. Don't judge. Don't judge yourself. Accept yourself as you are, and then work on what you have to work on. That's how you don't become discouraged. It's a reality. Now, then you might say, but what would inform a decision like that? Well, what would inform a decision to be accepting even of a bad quality is the fact that this is the material world. Now, if you were in the spiritual world and you saw bad qualities, yeah, that would be concerning. Like, how did this happen? Or if you're living in Mayapur and your guru is there and you have an amazing program and you're seeing all these anarthas, maybe there would be more concern. But the fact is we're not in neither, and we've cultivated these anarthas. So, to be discouraged, I don't think is the correct perception. I think to accept that it's normal is the correct perception. It's like, I'm so discouraged. My apple tree produces apples. And you think, Mahatma Prabhu is crazy. He's getting depressed. Why? Well, I don't like apples. I like papayas. And I just don't know how to deal with this. Why didn't my apple tree produce papayas? This is like, it's not fair. It's not right. I mean, the world is unjust. You'd think he's gone crazy. But it's kind of what we do. Why do I have to be like this? Because you're a conditioned soul. That's why. Because you're in a material body with a material mind that's been conditioned through unlimited lifetimes. To be any other way wouldn't make any sense. So you say, I'm discouraged that I'm conditioned, but it wouldn't make any sense not to be conditioned. And I think, well, but I've been chanting Hare Krishna for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. That's nothing. 50 years, it's nothing. It's a flash in the pan. Why am I still conditioned? I've been chanting for 50 years. Yeah, and how many of those mantras were actually good? Well, maybe 3, 6, 10, I don't know. Maximum, a few thousand. Okay, a few thousand good mantras in the last 50 years. And why are you conditioned? You don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand that. So I think the idea that I can't accept myself the way I am is, in a sense, like saying I can't accept my apple tree for producing apples. Well, that's what it does. You are a conditioned soul. That's what you produce. You produce all kinds of bad things in your heart because they've been cultivated. Those were the tools with which you used to so-called get ahead and enjoy this world. Envy is a very useful tool for material enjoyment. Ignorance is a fantastic tool. Sex is the medium by which we believe we can enjoy. So they've all been cultivated. Right? So is it any wonder that we have all these bad qualities? So there's no wonder. That's why we can accept it. No, you have to take responsibility because it was your choice to come here and you cultivated those qualities. So acceptance and taking it doesn't mean you don't take responsibility. Acceptance means it's just the way it is. It has nothing to do with taking responsibility. The next step is now, will you take responsibility or won't you? And the idea is that acceptance would put you in the best consciousness, that give you the best attitude to be able to deal with whatever it is you have to deal with. You know, oh, I broke my leg, my life is miserable, it's horrible, I'll never do anything. Of course, it's not that you'll never do anything. For 6 weeks you won't do anything. But after that, you'll be able to walk and be normal. So it's not, oh, I have this quality, what's the use? It's so horrible. It would be like saying the same thing. Oh, you're saying maybe it's better not take any high position because it might trigger out something. Yeah, that's possible. But it's possible, yes, that if I take this position, I'll become proud. But the other way of looking at it is, if I'm qualified for the service and I can do it, and I should do it, then I have to take that responsibility upon myself to control myself, to enter it in a humble way, in a mood of service. So that's another way of doing it. Because let's say you realize I have a tendency to become proud when I'm in control. So it's an opportunity to become humble. And running away from it doesn't give you that opportunity. Now, if you're 100% convinced, if I take that position, I will destroy myself and others, yeah, then that's a good reason not to do it. But if there's a possibility you could do it, then I would say not doing it would not be good. You would be running away, and you'd be losing an opportunity to improve yourself. So, you have these two concepts in our philosophy. You have the concept of you can be Krishna conscious anywhere, and you have the concept of you have to have the right environment. So it's a balance between understanding, that I should be able to be Krishna conscious anywhere, but I have to be realistic about what I need to be Krishna conscious. So my guru tells me, go off to the middle of nowhere and open a temple. Guru Maharaj, who's coming with me? Nobody, you're going to be alone. And if you're 100% convinced by experience that you being alone is the end of your following the regulative principles, then it obviously wouldn't be wise to go alone, that you would need to take somebody with you, and you need to tell him, I can't be alone. I was a former drug addict or alcoholic or sexaholic or whatever. If I get along, that would be my demise, and I know that. Okay, yeah, so if that's the case, obviously. So those are the boundaries, that if I know that I can't, that I need a certain environment to be Krishna conscious, then I have to have that environment. And the other side is that I need to be strong enough that if the ideal environment isn't there, still I can maintain my Krishna consciousness. That's the challenge. And sometimes when the ideal environment is not there, it's revealed to us how weak we are. And so it's good to know, and it's good to reflect on how I could deal with that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we covered this topic well enough for today, right? Didn't we? And we can end here unless somebody has a question. I think this point about acceptance is extremely important. Acceptance neutralizes the negativity that could get in the way of improving myself. Because if I don't accept a part of me that's, we could say, not yet fully healed or not yet fully pure, if I don't just accept that, well, this is what I'm dealing with, this is where I'm at, then what happens? We become very negative about that quality, or very negative about ourselves. And then what happens? That negativity works against us, right? So you might say, well, am I supposed to be positive about the fact that I have these anarthas? You're supposed to be positive about the process of devotional service that can cure the anarthas, and then accept the fact that you have them without judging yourself about it, and then being enthusiastic for the solution and appreciating that I have the process. And just imagine I didn't have the process, I would be in trouble. I wouldn't be able to solve this. I may not be able to solve this problem, but I have the solution, so I should be happy. So, someone could say, but if I recognize I have a certain problem, it's very debilitating, embarrassing, very strong, degrading. How could I be happy? I'm happy that I have the solution. And I'm happy that someday I won't overcome this problem because I have the solution. I can be happy about that. And I can be accepting of myself that I'm a human being with human frailties, but I will commit and try to be pure and not give in to these lower needs or lower desires or anarthas, whatever you want to call them. And then I can be happy about that. I can be, even if I have so many desires, so many things are pulling me this way and that way, I can be happy that I don't give in to them. Okay, I'm being bombarded by them, but I'm committed enough to Krishna consciousness that even though I'm bombarded by them, I won't give in to them. And so and therefore I can be happy about that. Even though the fact that I'm attracted is to something it's not Krishna conscious is depressing, but I can be happy about the fact that I don't give in to it. Right? So in that sense, the thing which depresses you can be the thing which gives you some happiness. Isn't it? Because you're happy that you didn't give in. So that's one way to flip things into a way of looking at things that help you. Okay, so we will say goodbye. Until next time, whenever that is, I'm not sure yet. We will inform you. And Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gauranga Nitanam.